I recently listened to a video on motivation from my buddy Chaz Truman from his Life of a Pro Cyclist series, and I'll have that linked below. Motivation has never been a problem for me. Self-sabotage, on the other hand, that's been a challenge. Hey, cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. Before we get into self-sabotage, let's talk about the race and why I'm in it. Usually the Zwift races I've been doing have been anti-sandbagging crit races that have been less than 10 miles. This is a road race, flat. I look for a flat road race, and this is about 24 miles or so this is pretty long. One reason I'm doing this Zwift race is that it's raining outside. And thankfully for Central California, we're finally getting some rain, but it happens to be happening between the holidays where offices are closed, and I'd be riding outside almost every day. Fortunately, it's not raining every day. This is the end of my block, or near the end of my block, and this is my sweet spot block. This block was building on what I had done the previous block, and that block was building on what I had done the block before that. My focus this off-season was to work on a weakness of mine, long, sustained, flatland efforts. I started off in the end of September, early October with long, sustained endurance efforts, focused endurance, always spinning. I worked up the tempo, and then I started in the sweet spot. Started off with 3 by 20 minute sweet spot efforts, worked up to 3 by 30 minute sweet spots, and now I'm doing 2 by 40 minute sweet spots. In January, I'll start focusing on threshold efforts, mainly over-unders. Mainly time trial style over-unders. My first race of the new season is going to be in mid-February. Today, Monday, and Thursday are supposed to be my sweet spot workouts on my schedule. I'd never done a sweet spot workout on a trainer, and I would imagine it would take a lot of focus and discipline, and especially if I was going to do 2 by 40s. That's what my schedule called for. So I figured I'd experiment a little bit. I would do a race, and do a long race, and then mainly focus on my sweet spot work. At least for the first 40 minutes. I figured this race would be about an hour long, maybe a little less. And then I was thinking, at least at the beginning, that maybe I could just sweet spot the whole hour. At the beginning of the race, I'm going more than sweet spot just so I can stay with the group. But as it splits apart, then I slip back into sweet spot. Now, my sweet spot range is about 234 to 250 watts. That is 88 to 94% of my 1 hour FTP, which is calculated on a 20-minute test that I did. In wattage, we're looking at 234 to 250 watts. Another reason I chose this race is because all the categories started together. With a few late arrivals, there were about 254 people in this race, of which 58 were in my category B. And with a lot of new viewers watching this video, I am 66 and I am subject to AFib. Jumping ahead to the 10-minute mark, I'm in a group of about 27, 28 riders. There are about 98 in front of us. All I've been focusing on is staying within my sweet spot range. I should be focused on just riding people's wheels, but staying in the sweet spot range, that sometimes takes them to the front, and then so be it. I'm just trying to keep that steady. I'm trying to do that for at least 40 minutes, and my preference is to do it the whole race. If I actually chose to race this like a race and not do my sweet spot workout within it, that would have been a form of self-sabotage for me, and I easily could have done that. I would have done that in the past. Now I'm getting a little better with that. The reason why I need to stick with sweet spot is because that's what I need to work on right now. While I can get some benefits from actually doing a race, it won't give me the long-term benefit of what I'm trying to achieve because my goals are later on in the racing season. And just to be clear, I'm talking racing outside, USAC racing. Another form of self-sabotage that I've talked myself out of recently is not overemphasizing minor goals. So the minor goals in this case is I'm so close to reaching 9,000 miles for the year. If I focused on it, I can hit it. But that would take away from my sweet spot workouts. In fact, I may not even be able to do my sweet spot workouts because I'm doing a lot of extra miles just to be able to get that 9,000 in. So I decided that today's workout and Thursday's workout are the important workouts, and whatever riding I do in between those times should only be focused on my primary goals for this upcoming season. So the question for me is, why am I subject to self-sabotage? I think the ultimate answer is that at a certain point, working toward those goals gets real tough. My mind then starts to wander. I don't want to give up those goals, but then I start to introduce other things that may make things a little easier for me. The problem is with some of those things that I introduce can have a detrimental effect on my final goals. A lot of self-reflection then comes into play. So far, so good this off-season. I have not yet done anything that I would classify as self-sabotage. Jumping ahead a couple of minutes, we are back to the race. The reason I jumped to this point is that the group that I was with is starting to leave me, and I'm staying within my sweet spot range, at least not going much above it. I'm hoping if I keep this up that the group in front of me will slow down a bit, or at least some people will fall off, and then I'll get to join them as a group. But that doesn't turn out to be the case. So if you look at the graphics toward the upper right hand side, I'm at about 127th place out of 254, so that's at about the halfway point. So that seems about right. You have the A's and the B's, so that would put me, if there was an even distribution, right at the bottom of the B's. And being the old guy that I am, and that I had a forced upgrade to the B's based on 10-mile crits, that sounds about right. Jumping ahead to the 27-minute mark, I've hooked up with a couple of the people. At least they've been in the areas. I've been keeping up on my sweet spot work. One of the benefits of my doing sweet spot work during a race is that it motivates me to keep up with whoever I'm with, as long as I'm within my parameters, or to chase somebody, or to keep somebody away from me. Jumping ahead again, this time to the 40-minute mark, I realized a couple miles ago that I'm not going to be able to keep this up for the whole race. So pretty much a little after I hit that 40-minute mark, I dialed back. I tried to keep going again, but then a few minutes later I just dialed back like I'm doing now, and now I'm actually doing the race. Looking at the graphics overhead, I have about 10K to go. Now, you'll notice that the graphics on the far right, where I was 127th place, I am now 111th, 110th. There are a number of people up ahead that had fallen off the pace and then kind of died out. This is one advantage that I'm seeing of just doing the sweet spot work, that I just keep things steady. This should leave me ample energy for the end of the race. Well, I say should because I couldn't do sweet spot any farther than 40 minutes. So we'll see what I have after this. If you again take a look at the graphics on the right, you'll see that there's a group that's about 6 seconds behind us, that my chase partner Derek Clark and I have been trying to stay away from. I've been trying to ride Derek's wheel, but he doesn't want to get caught, so he's putting in more power, and that's creating a gap for me. And my legs are still recovering from that sweet spot effort. About a mile later, I estimated that this was a futile to try to stay away from those guys, so I slowed up to see if I can integrate in the group and not get dropped on them when they come and pass me. Derek Clark, on the other hand, went up ahead. So now Derek's about 6 seconds ahead. This probably was a good choice that Derek made, and this was a good choice that I made. The main question that exists now is Derek going to get to the finish before we do? Jumping ahead, we have about 3.1 kilometers to go. I've been riding wheels, trying to gather as much energy as I could. Now we're going up this climb toward the volcano. Everyone else decided to add some more power. I find myself off the back. So now I'm having to use extra power just to get back up to them. And it's going to take a while because some of those in the front are still pushing on the power. They're looking for a long 3-kilometer breakaway. I, on the other hand, was thinking that if I can jump from about a mile to go, that would be the best because, of course, I can't sprint. If I wait for 1 kilometer to go, there may be others thinking the same thing, so I'm thinking, I'll give a 1 mile a chance. This, of course, can blow up in my face, but this is where you experiment. I finally made connection in the volcano, except there's 2 of them that went up ahead, so now we're all chasing them. So now I'm back to riding wheels. I have to watch my energy expenditure, and I have to look for that 1 mile mark. I also have to position myself at the back of the group so I can start my run up through the group to get a little extra draft. At this moment, Derek Clark is 8 seconds in front of us. It's now 1 mile to go. I'm right where I want to be, and I take off. 1 mile is a long way. It's going to be about a 2.5-minute effort if I'm able to sustain it. With his gap down to 5 seconds, I've picked up 3 seconds on Derek Clark, and I'm still holding my wattage. But it's starting to drop. I had as much as 3 seconds on the group, and it's now down to 2 seconds. Derek, who's doing a little more power than I am, is holding at 5 seconds. There seems to be a split in the chasing pack. I'm trying my best to hold at least 3.5 watts per kilogram. It's half a click to go, and Derek and another rider are in my sights. More riders in the chasing group have coalesced and now are 2 seconds behind me. I have 700 feet to go. I can make it. And the GoPro runs out of juice. I'm using my backup camera that in retrospect I should have set up and turned on about halfway through the race. As it turned out, I was caught just like in my younger days in crits on the very last corner, so to speak. Well, I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. As always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.